Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Advancement Center, and welcome to another reading of the book by Robert Young, The Magic of Life, Volume 2, The Next Step. And we continue with Chapter 19. The return trip in the water taxi was exciting. Willie, John, and Fred took the first taxi, and Heinrich, Suzanne, and Bill followed. The two drivers had decided to have a race to the finish, and even though their speed was limited, they outmaneuvered one another several times and snuck in behind other vessels to gain an advantage. As they turned for the final run to the dockyard jetty, there was little between the two boats, and it was hard to determine who would win. The loudspeaker came alive and announced their arrival, and the boat slowed to 8 knots to approach the jetty. "We must have won," said Suzanne with excitement. "We are going in first." "Smart driver," said Bill. "He held the starboard position. The other driver had to give way." "He deserves a big tip. That was fun," exclaimed Suzanne. Heinrich smiled and waited for the taxi to be secured. There was much excitement in the air, and the next few hours would open the way to more mystery than he dared to think about. He had not yet revealed why he wanted everyone to meet at Olson Plaza, and up until that time, no one had asked. He couldn't wait to see all their faces when Suzanne revealed more about the Salamander Suite. Heinrich picked up his new phone and rang Fred. Suzanne and Bill watched with interest. "Hi, Fred. I thought I would try the new phone. You sound good from this end. Can you hear me clearly?" "Sure, Heinrich. I wonder what was ringing in my bag. I forgot about the phone. You will have to give me some lessons on how this thing works." "You will soon pick it up. No need for lessons." Heinrich replied, "I think we will meet in the apartment. You can order some snacks on the way up. I would like to include Marjorie and Tom in our discussion." Bill looked at Suzanne. They both detected something in Heinrich's voice and were ready to ask him what he was hiding when the door of the taxi suddenly swung open and the cheery voice of the driver flooded their space. "We won," he announced with a big smile. "He took off in front of me, but we got him in the end." "Nice maneuver," said Bill as he lifted Suzanne onto the jetty. Heinrich quickly closed off his conversation with Fred, stepped onto the jetty, and waved at the other taxi before escorting Suzanne and Bill to the steps that led to the Olson Plaza walkway. The atmosphere changed quickly as they entered the lift, and Suzanne gave a slight shudder as the presence of Simeon filled her consciousness. Bill and Heinrich seemed to be preoccupied by some other thoughts, and it wasn't until the lift stopped that they suddenly realized that Suzanne was already in deep conversation with Simeon. The unmistakable glow that emanated from Suzanne signaled Bill to move slowly and hold the lift door until Suzanne was ready to move. To his surprise, she responded immediately and headed towards the apartment. The door opened as Suzanne approached. Marjorie and Jamie welcomed Suzanne and waited for Bill and Heinrich as they watched Suzanne whisk her way across the floor like something from another world. A strange feeling came over everyone as Marjorie closed the door. The light became hazy, then a shimmer of light flashed from the direction of the Salamander Suite and disappeared as the light became clear once again. "What was that?" exclaimed Tom as he entered from the second bedroom. "Samuel and Martha are asleep. How did your night go?" Tom was cheerful and relaxed as he walked across the living room. "Did you leave Suzanne behind?" he offered with a slight inflection of humor. Everyone looked around to where Suzanne was standing only moments before. "Jamie, did you see where Mommy went?" inquired Marjorie. "She was here a moment ago," said Bill. "She may have gone to the bathroom." "I didn't see her when I walked in," said Heinrich. "You must have," said Bill. "She was just there." Bill pointed to where Suzanne had stood, then noticed Jamie standing, staring in the same direction. "What is it, Jamie?" Bill asked quickly as he moved towards Jamie. "Mommy is in there," she said slowly as she pointed to the wall, "in the big room with her picture at the other end." Bill looked at Heinrich and never said a word, but the message he sent was urgent and extremely powerful. It looks like our meeting has started early, Heinrich said clearly. Suzanne has discovered how to enter the salamander suite without a key, and for some reason, Jamie can see past the hidden door. I will open the door, and then we can wait for the others to arrive. Heinrich headed towards the curtain, and with a familiar action, swept it aside and inserted his key card in the lock. The hidden flap slid back and revealed the door handle. Bill's hand was there before anyone knew what was happening. Marjorie and Tom had never seen this before and could do nothing but look as the door opened and revealed its splendor. Suzanne turned as they entered. She looked like Jamie when she was playing with her invisible friends. Everyone stopped and watched as Suzanne's figure changed from almost transparent to solid, brilliant color that emanated a glow that they had never seen before. Heinrich stepped forward and reached up to what seemed like fairy lights that are used for Christmas celebrations. As his hand approached, the lights started to blink on and off in a random pattern until they suddenly went bright and the lights in the salamander suite changed to a normal brilliance. Suzanne magically returned to normal and the unusual glow disappeared. Tom heard the knock on the door and quickly retreated to welcome Willie, John, and Fred. I see you have been introduced to the salamander suite, said Fred, with a knowing smile. I wondered why we were meeting here. Yes, you are just in time. Come in, Tom said enthusiastically as he encouraged them to move quickly so he could get back to the action. Suzanne disappeared, and we found her inside when Heinrich opened the door. Willie was first to reach the room. He stepped inside quickly as if he was ready for action. It seemed like everything in the room had gone into slow motion, and even the sound was drawn out beyond recognition. He jumped in the air and touched the brightest of the fairy lights. A sudden impulse went through the room like a silent sonic boom, and the room came back in line with normal reality. Heinrich's voice was clear as he addressed Willie. Thanks, Willie. I would have done it eventually. I missed the reset on the first try. What is this place? Said Bill with a deep frown. Are you okay, Suzanne? What happened? Bill could feel the temperature rise in his body. He was ready to defend Suzanne and his family and needed some quick answers to ensure him that they were safe. Suzanne felt Bill's concern and the buildup that was happening out of concern for her and the children. She immediately put her arm around him and led him out of the suite. It's okay, Bill, she said calmly. Come outside and I will explain what has been happening to me for a long time now. I don't want to know what has been happening. I want to know what just happened, Bill replied urgently. How can I help if I don't know what is going on? Suzanne led Bill all the way to the courtyard door and smiled as he reluctantly opened the door and sat beside her on the outdoor lounge. How do you do that? Bill exclaimed in the middle of his barrage of complaints. What? Replied Suzanne innocently. Make me come outside when I am telling you that I am not moving until I get some answers, Bill said calmly. How do you do that? I gave you the answers you needed, she said quietly. Oh, so what was the answer? Bill replied with a boyish smile on his face. You know, she said, everything is okay, and I love you. Isn't that the answer you needed? You didn't say that, Bill interjected firmly. Oh, but I did, Susan replied. Or have you stopped listening? Suzanne's voice consumed Bill, and he remembered all the hidden conversations that consumed their lives even when they were apart. He snuggled close to her and almost drifted off as she explained the many things that were not for regular publication. There were some things that Heinrich knew about Suzanne's connection to Sally, but no one could understand the dual life that she led because of the dual transfer chamber that focused its control in the salamander suite. What seemed like a dream in one dimension was actually happening in another, But the reverse was not the same unless the body was physically transferred between dimensions at the point where the dimensional timelines overlapped. This varies with the progression of the universal fields and can only be detected by one or two people in the heritage line at one time in history. Sally, or Salamander as she was known in this dimension, carried on the leadership of her hidden family over 2 generations. Her daughter could not accept her gift and found herself in continuous conflict throughout her short life. Salamander took on the responsibility of her granddaughter and protected her position by keeping her prime focus in the dimension of the island of the Isles, with her good friends Sally and Simon Guthridge as her guardians. In this way, Salamander exposed Suzanne to the magic of her heritage, and Sally ensured that Suzanne's physical life took its natural course. The door opened slowly, and Bill came back to some semblance of reality. "Everything okay?" said Heinrich as he poked his head around the corner. "Everything is fine," replied Suzanne as she discreetly squeezed Bill's hand. "Are you ready to talk to us? I would love to know more about how I managed to open the door for myself while you all thought it was closed." Suzanne began to stand, and Bill was up well before she completed her movement. His agile nature always impressed Suzanne, and she giggled a little as he took her hand and led her to the door. Chapter 20. The powerful influence of the Salamander Suite remained with everyone as they sat at the table. Suzanne took Jamie and sat her between her legs in front of the edge of the chair. Heinrich sat at one end of the table and Bill at the other. Tom and Marjorie took their place beside Suzanne and Fred. John and Willie sat on the far side of the table. Bill was tempted to speak first, but a sideward glance towards Suzanne, gave him the clear signal that he was to say nothing. Everyone waited in silence, and the feeling of Simeon's presence grew as they waited for Heinrich to speak. "As you can all feel," Heinrich began with an expression of general acceptance, "Simeon is directing us strongly at this moment. I am not sure what will happen, but I am assured that we will know exactly what to do as each circumstance arrives." Jamie squirmed in her seat to attract her mother's attention as Heinrich continued. "You have all seen the Salamander Suite and experienced some of the phenomenon that comes with it. Your natural response is to ask questions so that your need for understanding can be fulfilled. Let me tell you that there is little I can give you as an explanation, except that it is a tool that supports the continuation of our heritage line. Every concept that you can imagine is possible, but the main thing it supports is our multidimensional existence on Earth." Heinrich took a deep breath and looked as if he was listening for his next instruction. Jamie could not hold her silence any longer. "Look, Mummy, it's you and Carmel," she said with excitement as she pointed past Heinrich to the door of the Salamander Suite. "You are in her house." Suzanne looked up but could see nothing. She looked down at Jamie and was about to speak when Jamie quickly interjected. "Look past the door to where your picture is. There." She pointed again. "Can't you see?" Suzanne understood immediately and projected her focus to the picture of Salamander. Within a moment, a picture that resembled a watermark on a piece of paper appeared on the far wall. "Look hard, Mummy. You can talk to Carmel if you want." Jamie's excitement was infectious. "It's true," Suzanne announced. "I can see Carmel Roberts. She is in her house on the island." Everyone at the table focused on the wall, but there was nothing to be seen. Suzanne and Jamie could see, but the others could not. Moments went by, and then suddenly Willie jumped up from his chair. "I have an idea," he said as he walked around the table. Heinrich, give me your key card. Willie waited for the card and watched a smile appear on one face after the other as they realized what he was about to try. Heinrich was still focused on the wall and was sure he was on the verge of seeing what Suzanne and Jamie were seeing. He handed the card to Willie without a thought and continued his focus beyond the wall. Willie moved quickly and with practiced expertise inserted the key card and reached for the position where the hidden handle would appear, but nothing happened. It took a moment before he remembered that the door sensors stopped the flap opening if anyone was near the door. He quickly moved away from the door, calmed himself down, and went through the process of inserting the key card once again. As he removed the card, he heard the familiar click and the flap slid back to reveal the hidden handle. He moved slowly and kept himself as calm as he could under the circumstances. The handle turned easily and the door opened automatically. A loud series of gasps from the table indicated to Willie that his plan was successful. He stepped to one side and made his way back to the table. As he turned to take his seat, he could see what he had revealed. The salamander suite had become Carmel Roberts' living room, and there in the room was Suzanne, an exact duplicate of the person sitting across the table. "Mummy, Carmel wants to talk to you," said Jamie, with a calm knowing that surpassed her years. "Go there like you do other times." Jamie's words faded slowly as Suzanne allowed her natural talent to take over. The presence of Carmel came quickly, and her smile confirmed that she had made the transition. "You faded out for a moment," came Carmel's voice suddenly. "Simeon said you may have a little trouble with your new transition." "Oh, Carmel, it is so good to see you," Suzanne said with a sigh of relief. "Am I really here?" "You are really here," Carmel replied as she reached out and gently touched Suzanne's hand. The sensation of Carmel's touch was exhilarating and much deeper than she had remembered. Something was different. "You feel different," Suzanne offered quickly. "Something has changed. What is it?" Carmel sat back in her chair and settled herself with 2 deep breaths in the characteristic manner of a psychic reader. Suzanne relaxed and waited for Carmel to lead her to wherever her guides decided to take them. An image flashed into Suzanne's mind, and she saw herself sitting for a painter to paint her picture. The scene quickly changed, and she saw Jamie looking at the painting at the far end of the salamander suite. Jamie's voice flooded her mind, and for the first time she heard her say, "Your painting." The scene changed again, and there in the middle of the salamander suite, she saw herself playing with a set of photos that Nana had given her. This time it was the voice of Salamander that filled her consciousness. "You and me are the same person in a different time." Suzanne's logic became overloaded and her temperature rose quickly. "Relax," said Carmel. "Nothing is as it seems when you are Suzanne Montgomery. As soon as you take on the role of Salamander, you will see from the stars and everything will be clear." Suzanne looked at Carmel with a deep frown and forgot that Carmel was aware of everything that went through her head. "Don't worry," Carmel interjected. "Your life as Suzanne will remain, but it will be enhanced by your new connection to your heritage." Suzanne smiled, and the image of the table at apartment 701 filled the room. "From here, you are able to take on the character of Salamander," Carmel continued. "Jamie will recognize you no matter where you are. Everyone else will require your physical presence." Suzanne nodded, and her heart went out to her friends and family in apartment 701. To her surprise, everyone waved, and Jamie spoke clearly. Suzanne replied to Jamie, but there was no response. She looked at Carmel, but she could not help. "Mummy, you have to speak our language," Jamie's voice echoed through suddenly. Oh, yes, I forgot, replied Suzanne, through the system of communication that she always used with Jamie. Does anyone else hear me? We hear you, Bill replied quickly. And I can hear you, said Suzanne, who was holding Jamie. You sound like Sally. This is amazing. Carmel reached out once again and touched Suzanne's hand. The image changed and she became conscious of her position in Carmel's living room. While you are here, we should go and see a few people about arranging your wedding, said Carmel. You don't have much time. Suzanne became hot again, and the intensity grew so fast that Carmel could not get through. She did not want to be away from her family, and she was not going to be married on the island. Simeon came to the rescue and calmed Suzanne in a moment. You are not trapped, he said calmly. A moment in your physical existence contains the complete experience of where you are now. It is as if time stops in your world until you are finished with what you want to do in your other dimensions. One enhances the other, and when you decide to return, your life is richer than it was before you left. If you decide to leave now, your life with Carmel will be put on hold until you decide to return, and Carmel's life will be enhanced by every visit. Suzanne relaxed and allowed everything to sink in. Her perspective became more flexible, and the smile returned to her face. Thank you, Simeon, she said with a sincerity that she had never felt before. How do I decide to be one place or the other? Simeon did not respond, but the sequence of images that followed made it clear that there was no explanation. It was simply part of her heritage, just like the magic box. Everything responded to her needs in a way that could never be explained. Suzanne looked at Carmel and knew that she understood. Within a moment, Suzanne was sitting at the table in apartment 701, holding Jamie and laughing about the fact that she was able to talk to herself in another place at what seemed to be the same time. Carmel's image remained for a moment, and with a sudden flash, the image reverted to the picture at the other end of the salamander suite. As everyone watched, the light started to dim and the door slid closed without a sound. The short silence that followed allowed everyone to settle until their questions started to bubble to the surface. What was that all about? Tom questioned first. Oh, Tom, don't be so sensitive. Insensitive, Marjorie snapped. This is a special time for Suzanne. She has never seen this before. Let her ask the questions. Willie closed his mouth quickly to cut off the questions that were about to pour out. The unusual sound that he projected was a mixture of remorse and disappointment that you would hear from a chastised child. It's okay, Willie, Suzanne interjected. I don't know what to ask at the moment. Willie's eyes lit up. He could see John and Bill ready to speak. He jumped to his feet quickly and took the floor. Before anyone says a thing, I have to ask one question. He started with excitement. What happened to the transporter? No one expected such a question, particularly from Willie. You were in some sort of a time warp loop, he continued. What would you have done if I couldn't reset it from this side? Willie's normal lighthearted manner was disappearing with every word. It's okay, Willie, Heinrich said with a calming tone. Simeon was in control. I am sure he gave you something to think about, but we were totally safe. Willie sat down slowly and allowed himself to calm before replying. I am sorry about overreacting, he said slowly. I had forgotten about my involvement with the transporter. For some reason, I knew exactly what to do. It brought back memories. Tell us more, exclaimed John. When were you ever involved with such things? It was when I was a boy, Willie offered. I loved to play with strange frequencies that I developed from a couple of Army surplus generators and a bunch of crystals that I found in the attic of our old home. I often made things fly around the barn, and occasionally things disappeared. I thought I was about to lose you all. Willie's voice faded off, but John was not about to let the subject go. Come on, Willie, there's more. I can tell when you're holding back. How did you know what to do? I suppose it is time for me to complete the second stage transporter that is sitting in the aft compartment of the Michael. Willie went on smiling. John looked like someone had just hit him on the head with a hammer. He was speechless. The dual transporter was my last major project, Willie continued. I had no idea where was focused until I saw the familiar time warp loop. I acted out of instinct, but now I know that it is my transporter. It disappeared one night after I visited a few other dimensions. I lost an hour and could not find my way back to the project. I think I have been given back the hour and the project. You know how to do all this transporter stuff? John suddenly exclaimed. You mean it was you all along, and you fooled me for all these years? Not really, replied Willie. It used to float in and out every now and then, but I didn't know how deeply I was involved. I am still not sure that I am the originator. I just know how to finish our new model. Bill had been listening intently, but could not get past the big question that stood in front of him. Heinrich, Bill interrupted suddenly. Can you please tell us what Suzanne is supposed to do with everything that has happened since we arrived? A good question, replied Heinrich. What Simeon did is use the dual transporter to demonstrate what Suzanne can do at a moment's notice. She can move between dimensions and determine which is active and at what time. This is called the salamander mode and is available because of her heritage. Heinrich began to settle into the conversation and continued without giving anyone a chance to interrupt. I have used the transporter on many occasions to keep in touch with Sally as she moved from one place to another, but I have no idea how it works. Sometimes I will be drawn to sleep in the salamander suite and find myself waking up as Willem in the pottery shop on the island. Sally would often meet and have some important matter to discuss. My afternoon nap was often taken up by trips all around the world, attending to Sally's so-called sensitive matters. An hour of island time often turned into several days of adventure in other locations. Sally saw herself as two different people, and I eventually became the same. Heinrich's skill as an orator captured everyone in the room, and even Jamie listened as intently as she did to her bedtime stories. You are all here tonight to witness the miracle of magic and the miracle of technology, and to see that it is possible for both to exist without secrecy. Those who are meant to see will see, and those who are not meant to see will have no concept of what they are looking at. Secrecy that causes division is no longer acceptable in either of our worlds. As Heinrich completed his sentence, he stood and moved with purpose to gather his Pacific Line carry bag and phone. Fred followed suit, and without saying another word, they both transmitted their intention of retiring for the night. Suzanne relaxed as each pair left for their various locations, and Jamie finally succumbed to the attraction of sleep that had been calling her for the last hour. Bill needed to be outside. He couldn't settle after all the activity, and his brain had become overloaded by the complexities of the people that surrounded him. Suzanne joined him on the patio after putting Jamie to bed, and within a moment, their world reverted to normal once again. And that ends chapter 20, and where we will stop today on the reading of this magical book, The Magic of Life, Volume 2, The Next Step by Robert Young. And when I return, we will complete the last two chapters And until then, wishing you a perfect life, perfect health, and a magic future. Thank you.